afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to In the Zone. Rich Sutter, Pete Coles, the dynamic duo of the hoop world, bringing it to you straight on down I-90, right in here in Westfield, Massachusetts. We're having a 10 today as far as the weather is concerned. Today for me is an absolute 10. It's beautiful. It's warm. There's a nice little crisp in the air, so it's really, really a pretty day. Pete, we had the draft last night.
Round
We had
one.
the draft last night, round one, and we're going to get into it really, really in depth at the back end of the show here today. We got a lot to cover today in the basketball world, a whole lot going on. But we are going to cover the draft. We have grades. We have graded it, watched it last night. Really, really enjoy the draft. It's such an exciting time for these young men to pursue and now capture the dreams of a lifetime. It's just so exciting, so rewarding. And to watch the families who have also spent a significant time of their personal time, their capital, their family investment in this whole thing. It's just a really, really cool thing to see. I don't think they got it great last night, though, Pete. I'm going to be honest with you.
I was looking at some of the picks. I was like,
I'm
what?
going to go right into it right now and be honest with you. I don't think they got it right. I think the NBA has a little bit of their business model that interferes with their absolute decision making. Let me explain what I mean by that. They're trying to grow the game internationally. And right now they're drafting international players above the United States players. And to me, in some instances now, with Victor Wembanyama, there was not a lot of green room there. There wasn't a lot of area there where you could say, well, he wasn't clearly the number one. In this year's class, I saw a lot of that, where I didn't think that there was a clear number one, especially out of this very, very unproven international class. And so when I went through the draft, I watched the draft as a person who's watching talent. Who's going to be the best player in this draft? Who's going to make the best impact for his team next year? And we saw that with Wembanyama this year and a great job that he did with the Spurs. But I'll tell you the truth, I'd have to give the Spurs an absolute F for their draft last night. And we'll get into that later. But as a group, as a team, I would give them an F. But we'll talk about that later. Pete, I want to jump into Portal Potty with you. So we're going to do fish and Portal Potty at the same time. NCAA fish segment of our show is the encapsulation of the whole thing that's going on right now and trying to put it into just a brief snippet for you, but also with the Portal Potty. Okay, here are what are considered to be the number 1 through 12 Portal Potty acquisitions this year, and what will that do for the landscape of college basketball moving into next year. And so we're really, really been watching a lot of this stuff, and we're watching as some of these young men have become extremely entrepreneurial in a very, very short amount of time and have learned how to work this system to their advantage. I'm not blaming them for getting the highest dollar amount they can, but there is a lot of gamesmanship going on here, and some of the colleges that are in this game, they might want to factor that in as well, because you might want to save a little bit of bank for the end because there's a couple of guys that are really, really good that are holding out. The number one player in the entire Portal Potty this year was Coleman Hawkins. He was at Kansas State, had a very good run at Kansas State, but now winds up at Illinois for a BBD. Okay, the BBD is a bigger, better deal. That used to be a pro contract phraseology, the BBD. Well, now in college, they're going for the BBD. You're seeing the BBD happen in the same year. They get an offer. They got the offer. They're sitting on the offer. They take the offer. Then come back, somebody ups on that offer, and they say, well, I got a BBD, and I'm taking it. All right, Johnell Davis, the Florida Atlantic guard who really won our hearts in the Final Four, had a great, great career for Dusty May. I was a little surprised that he did not follow Dusty May to Michigan, but my sense is that Michigan is having some trouble getting their portal Pirate Potty show together and their NIL show together at the same time. I think they're having a little bit of difficulty. The reason I say that is because they absolutely got muscled for Hunter Dickinson last year by Kansas, and now again, you know, you would think that they would pack her in there. That's his old coach, and he's going to Michigan. That would be a nice way to join up and finish the career. But Johnell Davis is going to go with Calipari to Arkansas. Good class for Calipari coming in there for sure. Umar Balo, probably the number one biggest big man in this whole paddle, the whole potty scenario right now. You know, if you're looking for a center, you're looking for somebody that's good. Umar Balo, again, I don't understand this, but I'm sure somebody on the inside could explain it to me. He went from Arizona to Indiana. Now, Mike Woodson has done a really good job out in Indiana with this class of amassing some good talent and using his portal dollars very, very wisely. But I don't understand how Arizona, for their big guy, gets muscled. I guess it's the new kid in town, as they say at the Hotel California, and they're just winning the day. I don't know some of the players that are in the existing program. For Cliff Amaruya also, you know, who was at Rutgers, and they just signed the number 2 and the 3 best player in the country. You'd think a center might want to stick around with those 2 mercurial great young players, but he hit the bricks as well, too. A.J. Storr wound up at Kansas. He was at Wisconsin. You know, this is what's really troubling to me because these are power conferences.
These are big schools, yeah.
These are big conferences getting muscled by other power conferences. And a lot of it has to do with how big is your football program. But I can't see Wisconsin, their football program is easily as good as Kansas is. And so I don't see where they're getting muscled to the dollars, just in the fact that they're just not equipped and up on top of this like they should have been. Cliff Amaruya, the aforementioned Cliff from Rutgers, the big man, he's probably the second best big man in this whole thing. He's going to Alabama out of Rutgers. I don't know. I think if I was him, I might have stayed there because I think Rutgers is going to be an up-and-coming team, especially in the Big Ten that I don't think is very strong right now. I think Indiana and Rutgers in the Big Ten next year will be able to elevate. I'm not sure how quickly because both of them had kind of fallen, but I think they'll be able to elevate. And I think Rutgers pretty quickly because I like their young players. Kadari Richmond down here on the 6th spot. Everybody had him going to St. John's. He was the number 1 get. After all this is filtered out, he's dropped down into number 6. He's from Seton Hall, and he will now attend St. John's. Again, same conference.
Yeah, that's
They're
like a lateral
in
transfer.
the same league.
Yeah.
I thought Kadari Richmond could be a first-round pick this year, but he chose to go back. The great Osabor, big man out of Washington, going to Washington. And a big money deal, apparently, from Utah State. That's where the bigs are eating the littles. The bigs are eating the little. Rob Avila, big Rob Avila, probably third best big man in his group, and a very, very talented player, I think, too. Doesn't look like much, but boy, he's got a good skill level, and he's big, and he can really push his body around. He's going to follow his coach from Indiana State's moving over to St. Louis. He's going to follow him there and got himself a pretty good deal, I would say. Here's one for the Connecticut Husky fans that they're going to like. Number 9, Aiden Mahaney. He was at St. Mary's. Talked about him a little bit earlier in a couple of shows. We like the St. Mary's program. We like their coach. But he's going to be heading over to the UConn Huskies. And the UConn Huskies don't jump into this portal party stuff as heavy and deep as everybody else because they've been able to maintain program integrity a little bit better than some of the other teams have. But where they have made pickups has been good ones. And Cam Spencer last year, you'll remember, was one of the pickups they had. He came from Rutgers. And so they're just being selective, but they're also hitting it right on the mark. They're getting exactly what they need in the program where they need it.
Right.
JT Toppin going to Texas Tech. He was at New Mexico, Richard Pitino's program. I don't get it, but some of these schools are getting muscled. North Shore Armir going from Miami to Baylor. You know, you would think, how's that occurring? You know, we'll see.
Well, I know how it's occurring. This is how it's occurring.
I guess I phrased that the wrong way. We all know how it's occurring, but how actually
Why?
How actually is it occurring when all of those schools are dealing with significant amounts of resource and capital and the ability to go get capital? Are the car dealerships in Michigan not doing the same thing that the car dealerships in Kansas are doing? I don't think so. I don't understand that whole thing.
I gotcha.
I would say that what will happen on some of this is you're going to go like, okay, let's just jump in here, and I'm not going to use the kid's name, but a guy goes from Power 5 to Power 5, all right? And you sit there and say, he's doing pretty good where he was. Beautiful school, beautiful environment, jumps out, and now he's going to wind up in another school. Power 5, different conference, goes out that way. Maybe the original school let him go.
Okay.
That's something we're going to have to consider. Maybe the original school felt we got to a price tag where we know this young man really, really well, and it's not worth it for us to keep going down that road. We're going to invest our dollars someplace else and maybe get a better bang for our buck than keep going up the ladder with a gentleman that really hasn't proven to us that he's fully committed to us. And so I think that's an interesting dynamic here that a lot of people aren't going to be able to pick up on. But I think that has a lot to do with this. When you're sitting there going, how is this guy going from this school to that school? They couldn't put up enough dollars to hold on to him. The current contract he had didn't match the one that he's getting now. How much is the differential? What's making that decision happen? I would imagine there's a lot more to it than just $1. I would imagine that some of it's personal, some of it's the coaching staff saying we're going to get to a certain dollar number with this young man that we don't want to pay, that we don't think is worth it to pay because we know him and we've watched him. We've seen his work ethic, and although it's very enticing to other schools, caveat emptor, be careful what you're buying.
So-
Let the buyer beware.
The NCAA is now a pro league.
It's a junior pro league, of course. Yeah, that's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. And the NIL killed the G League. NIL absolutely killed the G League. And we'll figure that out as time goes on. But this is going to have ramifications that are not really seen on the surface.
Yeah.
The plate tectonics of this whole thing are going to shift and go for years, and you're not going to see a whole lot of this settle down for quite some time in my imagination.
Yeah.
All right. So in the zone, I saw all these different lists and all this other stuff. They came up with a top 10 current coaches. I looked at the list and I didn't really go for it too much, so I came up with my own. All right, so I'm going to give it to you real quick. Who's our number one guy right now in college basketball? Who's our number one major domo guy? Who's our head coach right now that's hot, that's got it going? His program has jumped up through the echelons, but also other people are talking to him.
Are the Huskies howling?
Other people are coming to get it. The Huskies howled when he stayed home. They got a shot to go back 3 in a row. I think they have a decent shot to do it, but their program is doing something different than other programs are doing because they lost a lot the year before and they came back and repeated.
Right,
And
yeah.
they're going to lose a lot this year, but I would not put any dollars of my own that I would go against the UConn program right now and against Coach Hurley. I got Coach Hurley as our number one
Yeah.
guy out of Connecticut. Absolutely. And I'm very, very impressed with the growth of this coach. Very, very impressed with the personal growth of this young man. I really am. And I've seen and watched him for quite some time as a player, high school player playing for his dad. I saw them play, and I saw him at Seton Hall, and I watched, the trials and tribulations of the life of being a Hurley, which isn't always that great, I would imagine. But the transformation here is real, it's palpable, and I love it. All right, number 2, and to say Danny Hurley's number 1, and when you hear some of these other names, you're going to go like, he's in rarefied air right now.
Yeah, sure.
Bill Self, Kansas, number 2. I got him down number 2. He's got national championship wins. He's done great stuff. The NIL's kind of bumped them off a little bit, and I think they also, they said it was $2 million for Hunter Dickinson. We know it wasn't $2 million, but we also know that it was an actual lot of money. And was that a good buy? That's what some of these coaches are now getting into, because this is what I said before. Back in the day, you had to be a really good evaluator of talent in order to find that one missing piece, that diamond in the rough, as we used to describe it. You had to be a really good evaluator of talent. They thought that would go away when they started paying players, but it hasn't. You need to be better now because you're investing all of these dollars. And if you pick wrong, you got dollars locked up in the wrong guy while somebody else got dollars locked up in the right guy. Okay? You asked me if this was the NBA, the junior NBA.
Yeah.
Some of these teams are getting ready to be the Pistons. Some of these teams are getting ready to be the Charlotte Hornets. Some of these teams are getting ready to get left behind because they're not up with all of this.
I'm sorry, when it was just scholarships, it wasn't real money. Because the college can absorb that scholarship money.
Sure.
And they can absorb the fees, and they can absorb this, and they can absorb that. Now it's real money. It's people giving them real money to pay players. And it's a whole different animal evaluating talent when it's real money on the line.
A scholarship at a university is vapor.
Right, it's a throwaway.
You're going to get to a certain point where you have to cover your costs, but at the end of the day, you're just making all the other stuff that you charge people for that seems like you can make it go away very quickly and still save money.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
All that other stuff goes away. But the average cost right now of tuition has gone to the 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,000 range right now.
Oh, I know.
So some of these young men are at Georgetown. They're at $90,000 scholarships. So if they're
Yeah.
going to pay these gentlemen to the level that they are, I think we have to start looking at whether the scholarships are valid anymore. Paying their tuition when you're a millionaire, I think that kind of misses the beat personally. Mm-hmm. Let them pay their own tuition if they're millionaires.
Yep.
Okay, Tom Izzo in the 3 spot, Michigan State National Championships. Again, this is a guy, if you watch his face, I think that this is a guy that's having a lot of difficulty in this new world. He's an old gladiator. He wants to take his team and get out on the floor and ply his wares against the other coaches. And when that was occurring, he was one of the best there was, no question about it. If you look at his face right now when he's coaching on the sidelines, this wears on him. Tom Izzo, great coach. Rick Pitino, number 4. We're going to put him in the number 4 spot. I go with Matt Painter at number 5 because what they've done with that Purdue program is unbelievable. And Purdue generally isn't thought of as a great basketball program. If this gentleman who just took the Kentucky job goes and Coach Pope and he turns that thing up and it goes great, it's a Kentucky job. And so there's some of that built-in expectation. Nobody has a built-in expectation with Purdue, and that's why I have Coach Painter as high as I do, because he's done it the right way, done it with the right kids, and they have been unbelievable. And I think, you and I talked, they took Zach Edey in the 9 spot. We had him in number 1, and that's what I love about this. They had Trace Jackson Davis in the 58 spot, 57 spot last year. We told them, you're crazy. He's a lottery pick. And we were right. They were wrong. They were wrong about Zach Edey, too. And I'm sure that's going to prove over time. I got Rick Barnes from Tennessee in the 6th spot. I really like Coach Barnes. Tennessee, great program, a lot of resources, but he gets it done. He gets his team to play hard. Kelvin Sampson, Houston, I had him in the 7th spot. Probably should have put him a little higher, when I look back in retrospect, but he doesn't have the national title. I don't think he doesn't have that big gun that some of these other guys have. So and this is the reason Mark Few is in the number 8 spot. Mark Few and Kelvin Sampson have produced unbelievable numbers and metrics in this college basketball scenario. No doubt about it. But if we have to separate and we have to pull and say, okay, who's the best of the best of the best? You got to win the national title also as have that, while these other gentlemen have it. Some of them have it, and you don't. So Sampson and Few go in 7 and 8. I got Scott Drew at number 9. Greg McDermott out of Creighton I put down 10 because I think he's an absolute great coach. The one guy that slipped out of there was Tony Bennett, UVA. He's been a great coach, multiple national championships. Just kind of sliding a little bit. Just kind of sliding right now. Again, probably having problems in this new world. Okay, so we got some Husky honor for you. Got some Husky honorariums for you because what the basketball programs at UConn have been doing in the last number of years with Gino Arimia, Jim Calhoun, and now Danny Hurley. I mean, what they've been doing is unbelievable. All right, I wanted to read a couple of things for you because as we talk about who's the greatest program of all time in basketball, there's certainly going to be consideration for UConn, but if we say who's the greatest program from the year 2000 forward to now, it would absolutely be the UConn Huskies. And I want to give you a little bit of Husky honorariums here, and shout out to our friends down in Stores who are doing a great job in giving New England an unbelievable basketball profile right now. Connecticut is the only school to win back-to-back national championships on both sides. They've won back-to-back on the women's side with Gino. Now they've won back-to-back with Coach Hurley's team. That's unbelievable. They're the only school to win the national championship in the same year. Men's team and women's team took the national title in the same year. And they did it twice. They did it 2 different times. Unbelievable. Stores, Connecticut. I will now, in the zone fashion, in the zone honorarium, I will now announce that Stores, Connecticut is the new basketball capital of the world. Stores, Connecticut. Who would have thunk it? But it's a great story. It's a great story. All right, Pete, I'm going to have some fun with you right now.
Oh,
All right? College basketball. And this comes out of a College Basketball Report. The leading NCAA scorer by alphabet of their first name. Okay?
okay.
So you would say A, Antoine Davis from Detroit Mercy, 3,664 points.
Wow.
Now we go B, gentleman by the name of Byron Larkin, a great guard out of Xavier, 2,696. Number C, Chris Clemens, Campbell University, 3,225 points. That's an unbelievable career.
Yeah, right.
Doug McDermott, Jr., his dad's a coach. And the D's, Dougie's got the D's. He's out of Creighton with 3,150 points. Unbelievable. Elvin Hayes in the Big E. They called him the Big E. Out in Massachusetts, we have the Big E. But the Big E, Elvin Hayes from Houston, 2,884 points in his career. He takes the E. F, Freeman Williams, 3,249 points out of Portland State. What you're seeing here is the divergent path works for some people. They don't go to the big schools. Detroit Mercy for Antoine Davis. He got to play for his dad. Everybody wanted McDermott. He went to Creighton and played for his dad. I guess part of it is if you want to be one of the all-time great scorers, go play for your dad as well. But we'll leave that for later. But what I'm seeing also here is Campbell University, Portland State, Lipscomb. You're seeing some divergent paths where people went to schools and not the biggest school of all time, but boy, did they have a good time there. All right, Garrison Matthews, 2,478 points out of Lipscomb. He takes the G's. H, Harry Kelly, 3,066 points out of Texas Southern. Unbelievable. Isaiah Stevens for the I's, 2,350 points out of Colorado State. The new, and we're going to get into this a little bit when we do our NBA fish, the new head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, J.J. Redick from Duke, 2,769. He takes the J's. K, this is a gentleman I knew from back home. Keedron Clark, probably under 6 foot, 3,058 points from the St. Peter's Peacocks. The L goes to the train. Lionel Simmons, pull that train. Speedy Morris, LaSalle. He was recruited by a lot of bigger schools than that. Went to LaSalle, and here's the reason he went. 3,217 reasons, folks. That's a lot of points. Max Abmas, he takes the M's. ORU, Oral Roberts, and he also played at Texas, 3,131 points. Unbelievable. Nick Fazekas takes the N's out of Nevada, 2,464 points. The big, and I say the big O, Oscar Robertson, out of the University of Cincinnati, 2,973 points. And if you go back and check, I'm pretty sure Oscar Robertson wasn't allowed to play basketball in his freshman year. Pete Maravich, 3,667 points out of LSU without, and I'm going to say it again, without the three-point shot. 3,667 points. As you can see, Antoine Davis came very, very close to that. Came up a little bit short, but Antoine Davis also applied his wares with the three-point ball. QJ Peterson from VMI, 2,200 points. R, here's one, God rest his soul, one of the greats out of the Boston area. He was from D.C., went to Northeastern, played for Coach Jim Calhoun at Northeastern. That might be a little bit of a snippet, but again, with the Celtics as well. Reggie Lewis, 2,708 points, God rest his soul. What a college career that young man had. Steph Curry, he gets the S's. Steph Curry, 2,635 points out of Davidson. I think it also matters what's the letter of your first name here, too, because if you got an S or some of these other ones, a Q, you're
Common
way,
name, yeah.
you get less points there. Tyler Hansborough, Big T, Psycho T. North Carolina, 2,872 points. What a career that young man had. Umoja Gibson from DePaul, 2,122. Go to DePaul, you're going to take a lot of shots. The V for Vernon Maxwell, 2,450 points out of the University of Florida. People do not remember how good Vernon Maxwell really, really was. He was tremendous. Wayman Tisdale, Love this young man. In college at Oklahoma, the big lefty. Heat hook, 2,661 points. Incredible. X-Man Xavier McDaniel, 2,152 points out of Wichita State, the Shockers. Yoli Childs, 2,031, and there was a big Y next to his name because he went to Brigham Young. And our favorite guy of the year, Zach Edey, the big Z. Where do you hear this, Pete? 2,516 points.
That's pretty darn good for a big man.
Not bad. Not bad for a guy they said couldn't be the number one pick. Okay, Pete, while we're on number one picks, we're just flying today. We're absolutely flying today, and we're having a blast. Somebody throw up a marker that says, hey, coach, at 20 minutes, you better do your draft. All right? Because we had the draft last night, and we got a lot to cover there as well. Next week, in our segment, we're going to tape on Wednesday, I believe, but next week we're going to go into it, and we're going to really, really get into it with both rounds because we have some situations here last night I did not understand. I'm shaking my head, and I'm going to tell you why I'm shaking my head. But here is the most number one picks by school, Pete. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Who has the most number one picks by school, do you think, Pete?
Number one picks by school?
By school. Which
North
school?
Carolina.
North Carolina. They are third.
Okay. Well, back in the day, Indiana was a machine.
Indiana, they're in there. Everybody has like two. The highest level of all are the Duke Blue Devils with 5. And I'm going to give them to you. Now, Art Heyman was one of the draft picks out of the Duke regime way, way, way back in the day. Art Heyman's not a neo player, but some of these other guys are. Paolo Banchero, drafted number 1 out of Duke. Zion Williamson, drafted number 1 out of Duke. Kyrie, Pete, your guy, Kyrie, number 1, drafted out of Duke. And Elton Brand was the 5th. Art Heyman makes the 5th. That's a pretty good group right there. And Elton Brand goes back a bit, but Kyrie, Zion, and Banchero, those are 3 number 1s out of their top 5 that occurred fairly recently. It's within the new millennium. All right, Kentucky is second. They have 3. They have Karl Anthony Towns, the big cat. They have Anthony Davis. And they also have John Wall. That's 3 really good ones. What I want our fans, listeners, to do, as you're listening to this show, you come back and tell us who had the best. Who had the best? Because as you go through this, you're going to see there's some teams here that put up some pretty good people. North Carolina, Brad Daugherty, very, very good center back in the day.
Yeah.
And they also had James Worthy. James Worthy was the number 1 pick. Michael Jordan was not the number 1 pick. Hakeem Olajuwon was the number 1 pick. Sam Bowie was the number 2 pick, and Michael Jordan went 3rd. So it's interesting how that works as well.
All 3 good players, though.
Well, Bowie broke his foot and never really materialized. In college, he was a really great player and had an unbelievable upside to him. 7'2". He had all the skills. Drafting him wasn't, the only thing that happened was, and this happens with 7'2", a little bit thin. They have a lot of foot problems at time to time. Rick Smith, Walton, a lot of them had some issues with their lower extremities. So UCLA has 2. I was a little bit surprised that UCLA only had 2. But when you hear the 2, you're going to go, oh, my God. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Walton.
Check.
So I don't know if anybody's going to be able to beat UCLA. But let's
that's a serious powerhouse pick.
Let's play on a little bit. Kansas has 2, Danny Manning and Andrew Wiggins. They just listed how many they had. I had to go back and find out who they actually had. It wasn't that difficult to find, but it was interesting. Kansas, Danny Manning and Andrew Wiggins. Indiana had Ken Benson. Excuse me. This ginger ale's killing me, Pete. Love it. Kent Benson and Walt Bellamy way back in the day. Coming out of Indiana, Kent Benson. Scott May was one of the best players in their history. Quinn Buckner, neither one drafted number 1. So we got Michigan with 2. They had Chris Timeout Weber, and Cazzie Russell. That's a long time ago for Cazzie Russell. The Knicks drafted him number 1 overall, I believe. Maryland had John Lucas and Joe Smith. It's a nice dynamic duo. UNLV had Larry Johnson and Anthony Bennett. Anthony Bennett might be the worst number 1 of all time. Just going to go out on a limb there. Georgetown, here's 2 good ones. Patrick Ewing and Allen Iverson.
Wow.
That's a nice 1-2 punch right
Wow.
there. Utah had this guy, Andrew Bogut, years ago. They also had a guy, Bill McGill, way back in the day. Houston, Hakeem Olajuwon and Elvin Hayes. How are you going to beat those two? I mean, with Kareem and Walton, most likely, but you got Elvin Hayes, was unbelievable. That was the first college basketball game I ever saw, was Elvin Hayes, a little bit older, teamed up against UCLA and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Unbelievable. That's when I fell in love with the game. Cincinnati, Oscar Robertson and Kenyon Martin. Pretty good, nice little pair
good
there.
picks, yeah.
Purdue, Joe Barry Carroll, maybe the second worst number one of all time. And Glenn Big Dog Robinson. And Kansas State had two, Howie Shannon and Bob Boozer. Don't know who either one of those guys are. I did want to mention also, back in the day, I saw this. They were not listed in the top, but they did tie with two because there was a whole lot of teams tied with two. The Duquesne Dukes have two. And I was shocked at that. But you go
Duquesne.
back in the day, it was some guy named Cy Green and Dick Ricketts. Okay, Dick Ricketts. We're smoothing it, Pete. We're smoothing it. All right, here we go. Power conferences in their last 200 games. This is the big of the big of the big. ACC, Duke, 152 and 48. In second place is Virginia, 149 and 51. They're 3 games off the pace over the last 200.
Wow.
UNC, I was surprised to see them in third, 133 and 67, and they're 19 games off the pace.
Even with all the cannolis?
I was surprised, even with all the cannolis. You got to understand that they're all eating cannolis. Some maybe one extra, somebody went back for one more cannoli, had a half, but they're pretty much 8 to 10 cannolis on the table for each one of these guys every single year. And that's what you say. If you go and you look at, take Jim Boeheim's coaching record, go through all the wins that he has, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wins that he has, and then go back and slice out all the pay games. And then you'll see what that number comes out to. Does the number come out to, if you're a coach for 30 years and you have 8 to 10 a year, is that number 240 to 300 of your victories? That's 1/3 of your total victories were absolutely in the can bought. They were tomato cans. All right. Big East. Let them Huskies howl, Pete. 141 and 59. That was a little low, I thought, because they've been absolutely scorching standard. Creighton, 137 and 63. They're only 4 games off UConn's pace, and that's unbelievable. Villanova in the 3 spot, 135 and 65. They're 6 games off the pace. So the Big East is tight.
That's parity.
Yeah, a lot of parity. And you got teams that have been there and come back, and now you got UConn obviously running the roost. We'll see who's next. Big 12, Houston. This is what I'm talking about, Kelvin Sampson. 172 and 28. Wow. Those numbers are ridiculous. Kansas, 154 and 46. They're 18 games off Houston's pace. Baylor, 149 and 51. They're 29 games off the pace that Houston has set over the last 200. Now think about that. 200 games, but you're 29 back. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Look at it through a look at it through a pro baseball season where there's 161 games. Do people get that far back during a season? It's not usual. Big Ten, Purdue, this is why I had Coach Painter as high as I did, 147 and 53. Michigan State, 131 and 69. They're 16 games off Purdue. And Iowa in the 3 spot. I was surprised that you don't have Indiana, Ohio State, or Michigan anywhere near the top 3 of the Big Ten, when traditionally they've been the big dogs in that league. 129 and 71, minus 18, but great job for Coach McCaffrey. That's a hard job. Pac-12, Arizona, no surprise there, 144 and 56. Oregon, a bit of a surprise, 131 and 69, minus 13. And UCLA, 131 and 69, also 13 off the pace. Last one, SEC, because these, as we're showing you, these are the 6 power conferences. Those are the big 6. SEC, Tennessee, 144 and 56. They're the big dog. That's why we have Coach Barnes up as high as we do. Auburn, 144 and 56. They're even with Tennessee, and that's been a great job by Coach Pearl. Kentucky, 140 and 60, minus 4. Who would have thought that Kentucky wouldn't be in that first spot?
Yeah, sure.
Unbelievable. That's why I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay, Here's a power outage. Okay, we talked about the Power 5 and the 6 and whatever. Here's a power outage. BC, our friends up in Boston College, so many bad decisions surrounding their athletics department. 86 and 114. They're 66 games off the pace in the ACC.
That's seriously underwater.
66 games in 200 cohort. DePaul, 72 and 128, 69 games off the pace. West Virginia, 102 and 98. That shows you how good the Big 12 is. They're at the bottom, 102 and 98. They're 70 games off the pace, but they do have a winning record. Nebraska, 86 and 114. They're 61 off the pace. California, 60 and 140. They fired a couple of coaches here. I don't know why. Minus 84. Vanderbilt, Jerry Stackhouse, 81 and 119. Minus 63. We have dishonorable mention here as well, Pete. We're not going to give you their records, but they're right there next to everybody else here. All of the people that were aforementioned that we just read their records, they have all they're right next to last or are in last. Okay, these people are not in last, but they might as well be. Georgetown, what have they done to that program? What have they done to that once storied, amazing program? Coach Cooley's got his work cut out for him down there too, because they're years behind in this NIL thing. And when you get years behind in the NIL, that means DFL, which means dead freaking last. Louisville, they're saving a lot of people in the ACC from being in last place. What has occurred there is nothing short of, I wouldn't say miraculous, because this hasn't been a miracle. It's been the opposite of it. It's been a disaster. Oklahoma State, they had a great run a couple of years ago, but their coach just got fired. Northwestern, I call them the catfish of the Big Ten. They certainly are. Oregon State and Georgia, let's pick it up, folks. Let's pick it up. Let's get into that mix. All right. Capitulation number 369 from the NCAA. Okay, a capitulation means we just gave up. We were fighting. We had a little battle going on. We just threw our hands up and said, no big deal. Capitulation number 369, no big surprise here. The NCAA now says that athletes will not be tested or punished for the use of cannabis without being banned from championships and postseason. Okay? Light them up, fellas. You're all in the clear.
How many schools still ban it, though?
I don't think. How many what?
How many schools still ban it? That's the thing. I mean, member schools
they ban it, but they don't test them.
Oh, yeah.
The NCAA tests them. So if you get caught in your dorm room smoking pot, yeah, they'll run you up through the judiciary and you'll have something, which at every campus right now is about as common as it used to be when they caught somebody holding a 12-ounce beer. Okay, there's flipped. The two cultures have absolutely flipped on college campuses right now. And what you're seeing is the NCAA just saying we're not going to keep our best players out of prime time because they were smoking marijuana at a frat party.
Because it's a business.
That's exactly what you're seeing, Pete. Business model. Okay. NBA fish. Let's slide in there, Pete. We're having a blast here today.
Yeah,
we are going to
take
this. We're going to take this in 5 minutes, and we're going to then jump right into the draft because I love the draft. But here's the top 20 playoff performers of all time in NBA history. Number 1, Michael Jordan. Number 2, LeBron James. Number 3. Now, this was subjectively done. This isn't based upon points. This isn't done. This is somebody sitting in their living room says, this is what I think. Okay? This is Bleacher Report. All right? So you can take them from what it's worth. When you get through the list, and we'll put our own list together soon as we get some downtime, this is going to be known maybe as the Bozo Report because they're just way, way off here. All right? I'm going to tell you a couple of different ways they were way, way off. Number 3 is Shaquille O'Neal. All right? Here's how you know they're way off. Did Mrs. O'Neal put this poll together? Because there's no way. There's just no way. Okay? Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in the 4 and 5 spot. Almost sacrilegious. Tim Duncan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 6 and 7. Kareem 6, Tim Duncan 7. Okay? I got no problem with that. But when we get to number 8, I got a huge problem with this one in the 8 spot. Bill Russell. 11 titles. one of the great Celtics of all time. He does not belong in the 8th spot. He
Maybe
belongs
swap him
much,
and
much
Shaq.
higher than that. And you're going to put Shaquille O'Neal above
That's
him?
what I'm saying. Swap him and Shaq, maybe. And
100%.
You
Pete.
might have an argument
Pete,
there.
let's do it. Bang, bang. See ya. All right. We're going to put this together, and we're going to give it a little better take, I think. They have Steph Curry, number 9, Kobe Bryant, number 10. Here's again, I don't know. But this is playoff performance.
Right.
All right?
Clutch.
So that does matter. They have Wilt Chamberlain at 11. And Wilt
Wasn't
Chamberlain...
Wilt more of a regular season guy?
Yeah, Wilt Chamberlain did not have the great, turnaround playoff seasons. Matter of fact, they lost to the Celtics an awful lot of times in the finals. So they had Wilt and Jerry West in the 11 and 12 spot. I mean, that's, I guess, it's fair, because they didn't max out like they could have. They did get the championship. They did have the ring, but they had so much talent on those teams, and they continually found ways to lose in the playoffs. Hakeem Olajuwon, 13. He's got to be higher. Put Hakeem Olajuwon over Shaq. Of course. Playoff performer? Get out of here. If Shaquille O'Neal wasn't allowed to just turn around and run right over the guy right next to him, Shaquille O'Neal wouldn't even be on this list. Okay? The NBA just let him physically abuse opponents and go all over him and use his size. If that wasn't the case, he could go down as the worst skilled big man of all time. Okay? One of the worst skilled big men of all time in terms of his ability to shoot the ball, handle the ball, all that other stuff. I've never been a huge fan to the point where everybody is with Shaq. I just haven't been. Okay, I don't think he worked hard at his game. I think Kobe Bryant embarrassed him on several occasions by calling out his work ethic. And he's the big diesel, no doubt about it. But I love people with work ethic and dedication. Nikola Jokic, they put him at 14. The Joker. Kevin Durant, 15. Dirk Nowitzki, 16. Kawhi Leonard, 17. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 18. Isaiah Thomas, 19. Isaiah Thomas has to be higher than that, folks. Isaiah Thomas has to be higher than that. Dwayne Wade, number 20. I don't know. Now, here's where I think they went a little bit off, because here's some people that did not make their list.
I was going to say, there's some names that have been left off that list.
All right, so here's one that they're going to go through. I'm going to give you 3 Celtics in a row that are absolutely ridiculous misses from this. Number 1, John Hondo Havlicek. I'm going to read you some numbers of Hondo Havlicek, and how he was omitted from this list is absolutely egregious. Who's one of my favorite players of all time? Sam Bam Jones. You don't have Sam Jones on this list? All of the titles, all of the winning. They won 11 titles, folks. Bob Cousy. Maybe the greatest lead guard of all time, not on this list. Bob Cousy. Walt Frazier, not on the list. That's crazy. Earl Monroe, not on the list. None of these guys could guard Earl Monroe. None of them could guard Earl Monroe. Steph Curry couldn't do anything with Earl Monroe. None of these guys on this list. Dirk Nowitzki, great player. Earl Monroe, give me a break. Earl Monroe was unbelievable. Tony Parker from the Spurs, the point guard that led that Spurs team, all those championships. Sure. Come on. He belongs on this list. Kevin McHale. I love Kevin McHale as a Celtic. As a playoff contributor, a guy who was just unbelievable, he belongs. Chris Bosh. I was never a big fan, but Miami Heat, Chris Bosh with LeBron and Wade, they had championships. They had great success. Maybe not in the same cohort, but here's one that really made me scratch my head. How is Scottie Pippen not on this list?
Sure, yeah.
How is Scottie Pippen not on the all-time playoff list with the run that the Chicago Bulls had? Him being right there next to Michael Jordan.
Well, him being the assist, like he was the guy who was feeding Jordan all the time.
He was the foil.
Right.
He was the foil. He made Jordan as great as Jordan could be. Jordan was great, but there's no doubt Scottie Pippen made him into a greater player because you could focus less on Jordan when you had to guard Pippen. And he was a combine guy. Unbelievable. Really, really good combine guy. He went up the line. Clyde Drexler's not on this list. All right. I know you got some people down here, but you're talking about Clyde Drexler, folks. One of the greats of all time. Bleacher Report. Go back and edit. Go back and redo it. All right.
Time for an in the zone list.
I'm going to save the rest of this, Pete, because we have the draft and we have the report card, and I know people are anxious to hear that. All right, because I could keep going here and close the show without even talking about the draft with all the stuff that I have. Before we jump into that, though, and we'd like to provide people information, our friends at the WNBA, they are poised to lose $50 million this year. Even with the increase in ticket revenue, even with the increase in the TV revenue, the increase in just about everything, they are on pace to lose $50 million, according to the Washington Post. Supposedly, $25 million of that was in charter flights, which they insisted upon having. Caitlin Clark was able to get it for them. But at what point, at what business, do you just say, we're $25 million in the hole? We're going to add another $25 million of expenditure onto it. At what business do you do that? They do it at Rutgers. They do it at Houston. They do it at all these colleges that are running deficits into the new millennium. So I guess there's a lot of that. Some people are making it and other people aren't. Okay, folks, let's jump into it. We've got the second round tonight. And again, I'm going to hammer the NBA for a minute here because there's no way you should have broke this up into 2 rounds in 2 days. There's absolutely no way. Because you know who's going to be watching tonight? Only the parents and the friends and family of all of those people and me. They'll be very, their viewership on this one will be way, way down. I can't believe they allowed them to do it, break it into 2 nights. They did, though. And with the first draft pick this year, the Atlanta Hawks, not a big surprise, they took Zachary Risacher out of France. Now, some of these picks, I'm going out on a limb, folks, and I'm telling you, this is business model NBA. Get the international players into the top of this draft, because when I looked at this, and I looked at Victor Wembanyama, I said, absolutely Victor Wembanyama. When I looked at Risacher, I looked at Sarr, I looked at Bazelis, I looked at the guys they have in here. Some of these gentlemen need a strength and conditioning program. Some of these gentlemen are going to need a redshirt year like Holmgren had for the OKC Thunder, because they're physically not going to be able to match the trials and tribulations that go on in the NBA.
Did they think this is just like a French connection or something?
All of a sudden, you have all these French guys. Name me, they have how many guys that have come out of France in the last 2 years? Name me that same equivalent amount of people that came out the entire time in the NBA out of France right now. That's coming out of there. Name me that same amount of numbers that came out for all of eternity. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So, the talent's there. Let's go through it. We've graded them for you. All right. And I thought I was a little generous in my grading. I don't think I have too many F's down here, but I do have one. All right. Let's roll, Pete. With the number 1 pick, they took Zachary Risacher. I gave it a C-, the Atlanta Hawks. I think the steal of the draft was Zach Edey at number 9 and Donovan Clingan at number 7. I'm just going out on a limb to say that. Alex Sarr from France, also number 1 and number 2. I gave it a B. I think Sarr is 7 foot, can do some different things. But again, I don't think Risacher or Sarr averaged over double-double in the league that they played in. And the league that they played in is nowhere near as good as the NBA. I don't think they averaged more than double-digit points, either one of them. I think it was around 10 and 9 for both of them. That's why I said I wasn't as excited about this draft. Okay, I wasn't as excited about this international portion of the draft. What I think is going to happen tonight in the second round, you're going to see some people that didn't get drafted that are going to go in the second round, which are actually going to make teams and be pretty good players, I think. All right, so we got to hustle a little bit here, Pete. In the number 3 pick, the Houston Rockets took Reed Sheppard from Kentucky. I gave that a D. Okay, I gave Sarr out of France a B because of his length and size, and we did say we were doing size this year. I had Sarr in the top 3. A lot of people had him at number 1. Not a lot there. But again, Reed Sheppard out of Kentucky, I gave it a D. All right, I think it was way, way, way too high to draft Reed Sheppard. I'm sorry. Okay, now we go to number 4 pick. The Huskies are going to howl at me this time. Stephon Castle drafted number 4. I gave it a D. That's way too high. I had Stephon Castle down in the 20-25 range somewhere. And that's not a knock on the young man. I just didn't have him, not in the number 4 spot, not with all of this size going around. Number 5 was Ron Holland. We gave it an A. We liked Ron Holland. We had him in the 4 spot. They took him in the 5 spot. I'm going to tell you, Ron Holland's better than Stephen Castle. I'm going to tell you right now, Ron Holland's better than Reed Shepherd. And if you put Zachary Researcher and Alex Sarr up against Ron Holland should have been the number 1 pick then. Just my opinion. If you're looking at those 5 right there, Holland should have been number 1. It's going to prove out in time, Pete. Tijane Salon from France again. We got, of the top 8 picks, top 7 picks, top 6 picks, 3 of them are from France. Go back and find me when that's occurred ever in life, please. Okay, there's our big guy, number 7, Donovan Clingan. He goes out of UConn, and we gave it an A. We gave it an A. Really, really liked the pick. Really, really thought he's going to be a good pro. Okay, Rob Dillingham out of Kentucky. I did not have Rob Dillingham in our first round. Okay, I think he's got a little bit of a height issue because he lost about 4 inches when he left Kentucky and showed up at the combine. And then also, I think he's got a shot selection issue where he doesn't understand, making that play that's in front of you rather than just catch it, shoot it, and control the ball every time. I think that this is not a good pickup, and I'm going to tell you why, because he was immediately traded. And the Spurs traded him, and they traded him for 2 picks that won't occur until the 2030 season. So talk about throwaway.
Why did they pick somebody better?
So the Spurs, I'm going to hammer you right here. You took Stephen Castle and Rob Dillingham and traded Rob Dillingham for picks when you had the number 4 and 8 spot in this draft. That's why you're in last place right now. That's why Victor Wembanyama is going to have to be traded out of there because you have him, the best player, young player in the NBA, you have him stuck in the worst one of the worst franchises around. You might as well send these guys to the Detroit Pistons. Okay, so Zach Edey, number 9. The Grizzlies took him at 9. I love this pick. I love this pick at number 9. He's 7'5". Okay, he can change shots. He can dunk anything that's near the basket. And I think what you're going to see is the Grizzlies are going to get a little bit of a bump on this because they have a pretty good team and they were lacking for some of that size. I think that this is going to be a good one for them. I think that's the steal of the draft right there. I gave it an A. Rob Dillingham, I gave an F. That was the F that I gave out. Holland got an A. To John Solane, I gave him a B. Donovan Clingan, A. Dillingham, F. Zach Edey, A. Cody Williams out of Colorado. I liked him. He's got a good frame, got a good NBA body, but he better get stronger. I gave it a B. Mateus Buzelis, I had him a little higher. I gave it a B. I think he's got an upside, but again, another guy who needs a Happy Meal, another guy who needs a strength and conditioning coach, another guy who's going to need to put on some weight before he gets absolutely grinded up to dust in this league. All right, so you got Nikola Topic. I did not have him being drafted out of Serbia. He's a guard, smaller, very, very good player, but he also tore his ACL right before here. So he's fighting an injury right now. I wanted no part of that, so I didn't even draft him in the first round. They took him at 12. I gave it a D-. Devin Carter out of Providence, I gave him a B. He drafted well. He did well at the combine. He had a great time at Providence. I think he's going to be good, but another guy who lost about 2.5 inches when he left Providence. Bubba Carrington for Pittsburgh, C-. Quickly traded right after that. Portland took him. I don't get this pick at all. I gave it a C-. Could have been easily a D. This one I like. Kel'el Ware out of Indiana at the 15 spot. I like that a lot. I gave it an A-. This one, I scratch in my head. Jared McCain from Duke, very good player. Could have a good career in the NBA, I think, but I just didn't see him this high. I didn't have him in the first round at all. They took him 16th. I gave it a D+. 17, the Lakers took Dalton Knecht. I scratched my head on this one, too, because they have the young man Reeves, who's there, very, very similar player. So if Reeves isn't staying and they're going to move him, I get this pick, but if you have Austin Reeves and you just pick Dalton Knecht, you just put 2 twins to a different mother together, if you ask me. They're the identical player, and L.A. needed help up front. L.A. needs help up front. They have LeBron. They have Anthony Davis, who's mercurial and hurt a lot. They need help up front. This isn't going to help. Okay. Kel'el Ware, I gave an A-. McCain, I gave a D+ too. Dalton Connect, I gave a C minus. I think he can be an okay NBA player, but he's certainly not going to be the type of player that he was at Tennessee. This guy I like a lot. Tristan Da Silva in the 18 spot, I gave it a B plus. Jacoby Walter from Baylor, I didn't had him at the very, very tail end of the first round. I gave that a B. Okay? Actually, I gave that a C. All right, so we're cruising. Jalen Tyson, taken by out of California, taken in the 20 spot. We had him a little bit higher, but I like this pick. I gave it a B plus. I think Tyson's got some skill level. I think he can be an okay pro. He's got pretty good size. 21, Yves Missy, the big man out of Baylor, 7 foot. I gave it a C plus. I thought it was a little too high. Probably could have grabbed him a little bit later, and I was surprised that some of the guys that didn't get drafted here. Deron Holmes from Dayton, C+. I did not have him in the first round, I don't believe. They took him. I don't think he's going to translate well to the NBA. All right, A.J. Johnson out of Australia, C+. Keyshawn George from Miami, instantly traded. I gave him a D. The Knicks, again, what they did here at 24 and 25, I really don't get it because they traded Keyshawn George and then got a bunch of picks, and then they gave up a bunch of picks in order to get Mikal Bridges. Now they got a bunch of picks back, but the ones they gave up were first rounders. The one they got back was second rounders. I'm shaking my head a little bit here, but I'm sure they had a plan. Pacome Dadier, C, another player out of France. If you're looking at this first round of the 30 players, you have 3 or 4 players that have been drafted out of France. Dylan Jones, D, he was traded, again, traded. At 27, Terrence Shannon, I gave this an A. I thought Terrence Shannon was more in the 20, 17, 18, 19 range, and to get him at this pace, I think is pretty good. I do think that court case hurt him a little bit. Ryan Dunn from Virginia, not real high on this pick, C minus, got a good upside, has a good NBA body and frame, but I just didn't see it when he was at Virginia. Isaiah Collier, C minus, and Baylor Shearman, I gave the Celtics, who took 30, I gave them an A. Almost, I want to give them an A plus because that was an absolutely great pick. I had Shearman going way, way higher than that. I thought he was the best shooter in the draft and also has a very, very good skill set. Okay, Pete, I asked you to pull me up a song way back in the day. I believe it was from the 80s. We're going to rock it. These are the guys that were not drafted last night, and I was shocked. Don't You Want Me, Baby. They're sitting in the green room. They're sitting at home. They're waiting. Their mom's looking at the television. Their dad's looking at the television, and they're shaking their head. And in the Don't You Want Me, Baby segment, I'm shaking my head a little bit, too, with some of these picks that did not get drafted in the first round. I'm going to lay them out for you because I think we got about 2 minutes, right, Pete?
You got about 3 or 4.
3 or 4. Ooh, I'm way over time. All right. Somebody, please, explain to me how Kyle Filipowski was not drafted in the first round last night. Somebody explain that to me. I don't think you can. And I understand you got all this international stuff going on and the G League and all these different players coming. This is one of the best players in college basketball over a 2-year period. 7 foot, legit. He can block shots. He's going to be a better offensive player in the league than Klingon or Edey will be because he shoots the ball better. I don't know how Kyle Filipowski did not get drafted in the first round. Number 2, Don't You Want Me, Baby. Adem Bona out of UCLA. I had him somewhere in the 12, 13, 14, 15 range. This is the best athlete in the entire draft. The NBA is a league of athletes. I got news for you. Size and athleticism wins the day. No way some of these other guys should have been drafted over Adem Bona. Oso Ighodaro, Don't You Want Me, Baby, out of Marquette, 6'9", 6'10". He's got some good moves. He's got some good skill. I get it. Maybe you don't see him in that position, but Dalton Connect over Oso Ighodaro in the NBA? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Tristan Newton. The Huskies are going to be howling. I can think he might be one of the top picks in the second round here tonight. But I had him in the first round. I think his performance at UConn separated him. And I think right now, he's available and somebody can get a really good second round pick with him because he's tough. He's a great player. And I'm not knocking Stephon Castle, but to not draft Tristan Newton in the first round and to take Stephon Castle, maybe there's an NBA translation that I'm not seeing there.
Somebody looking for a bargain, maybe?
I don't know. I don't know what they're looking for. All right, number 6, Kashad Johnson out of Arizona. Absolutely should have been taken in the first round. I don't know. There must be something on the street about this young man because they didn't invite him back to the combine. He's a stud, and I think he's going to make it in the NBA for a really long time. I would be interested to see where he gets drafted tonight, if at all. Jaden Ledee. We watched San Diego State over 2 years. Jaden Ledee was the linchpin of that team, carried that team. Everybody's saying, how is San Diego State doing what they're doing? They were doing it with Jaden Ledee, another guy. Absolutely. Don't you want me, baby? Should have been taken in the first round. And I got this guy. I've been watching this guy a little bit. Ariel Hockporty out of Germany. I told the Knicks they should have taken Jaden Ledee, should have taken Kashad Johnson, or should have taken Ariel Hockporty to help their front line and bring some athleticism to it. But instead, they went and took a young man from France, and also because they're in New York and they want that nice, international flavor there, I'm sure. But then again, they blew 24 and 25, if you ask me. The Knicks absolutely blew 24 and 25 with some of the talent that's on this table right here. You mean to tell me the Knicks couldn't use Kyle Filipowski?
Yeah, sure.
I think they could have, especially with the amount of games their starting center missed this year. Pete, we got there. We did it, baby. Don't you want me, baby? If you want us, watch us, like us, share us. In the Zone is the best basketball show in the country right now. The absolute best show in the country. Pete, it's been my pleasure. We'll see you next week. We're going to do a Wednesday shot next week, folks, so be ready.